So we have discussed on this element declaration. Element declaration, then we have gone through the attribute declarations also, in which different kinds of constraints we can put on the declaration of the attribute. Suppose this is an element and this element is getting the attribute in this fashion. So there are some different formats that are available. If you define the attribute with this with C data, and if you provide the data, then it becomes the default data and it becomes optional. Okay. So अगर आपने specify नहीं भी किया तो कोई problem नहीं है, because parser will replace this in this element definition. Line के बाद width is equal to 100 वो place करेगा. Then required, this is very simple to understand. It becomes mandatory for that element to get implemented with this attribute. ठीक है. So यहाँ पे currency required है. So currency should be there. If you cut this from this element declaration, then it becomes then it gives an error. So that's why we have to comply with the rules specified in the attribute DTDs. Then fixed. Fixed is nothing but this is a constant kind of implementation. Even though if you provide like this, or if you simply skip like this, both will do, because if it is there, then the value is only unique. It cannot be changed. So that's why fixed also becomes optional. But in that DTD, you have to mandatorily specify what is the value of the fixed. Okay. So whenever there is any unit, the RPM is the value. So you cannot change. Suppose if you write this as kilowatt, then it gives an error, because as per this DTD, it should be RPM. It cannot be kW. So that is what the meaning of this fixed. Then implied, it's a general implementation. Like you can safely take this because it is purely an optional, and if you take or omit, it doesn't bother about this. Okay. So पार्सर क्या करेगा, जैसे ही उसको इम्प्लाइड दिखेगा, इट सिंपली लीव्स, बिकॉज वो ज्यादा चेक नहीं करता आपने ऐसा भी दिया या ऐसा भी दिया, सो इसको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. ओके. सो इट मे बी अपीयरिंग लाइक समथिंग लाइक डिफॉल्ट, बट डिफॉल्ट में क्या है, डिफॉल्ट में अगर आपने वैल्यू नहीं दिया तो बाय डिफॉल्ट 100 लेगा, बट आपने वैल्यू 300 लिया बट कोई एरर नहीं आएगा, बिकॉज दिस इज द वैल्यू विच इज समथिंग डिफरेंट फ्रॉम द डिफॉल्ट वैल्यू. But you don't want to specify anything like this, then in those cases the value becomes 100. So that is the meaning of this default. But whereas it is not like that, it does not have any default value, but you can simply miss with this, or you can put with any value also. So these are the four kinds of attribute properties that we can attach with any XML element. Okay. Moreover, some tokenized types of attributes are also there. This you can primarily relate with the database kind of implementations. Whenever we are talking in terms of the primary key, foreign key, so you might be knowing the understanding the topic which is dealt wherever to identify a particular product or particular consumer or any employee, they will be having any primary key. Okay, so unique primary key, and accordingly we can implement some foreign keys also. Okay, so the same concept is taken in this XML also. So this XML is having one identifier called as ID, and see the example here. We have defined one attribute for this element. So the name of the element is question, and the attribute name is number, and it's an identifier. Okay, it's not the value, it's not the name of the attribute, it's an identifier. Name of the attribute is number. Okay, so this number is an identifier. That means it relates with this kind of concept, primary key. And as it is a primary key, you ought to mention as required. Suppose if you miss with this, it gives an error, because whenever you are talking about the ID, then mandatorily it should be a not null. Okay, so I am relating both the concepts. So the database is having not null kind of implementation. Similarly, the ID is an identifier which is binding with this required, and the name of the attribute is number, and this is the element name. Okay, so how to write this? Suppose here, yes, downwards some example is there. So I will not write that. So we will go to the next part. So attribute list, employee is having, this is another example. Okay, so similarly, question is having an ID. Similarly, employee is having an ID, which is having the name of the attribute as ID. These two are different because this is capital ID and this is small ID. It will work. Okay, so it is not having any name clashes. So this is also again required. So an ID attribute can only have either implied or required, but generally ID goes with the required. Okay, so ID goes generally with the required uh, as the part of the implementation. Then we will see with the ID ref. Similar to the foreign concept, ID ref value of the attribute must refer to an ID value declared elsewhere in the document. So this is an example to easily understand. We have defined this question for this attribute. There is an ID. Similarly, there is an answer element. Okay, we have not written XML exclusively. The downward example will be clarifying that. The answer element is having the attribute name as question number, and which is ID ref. It's not ID, it's ID ref. Okay, so again, this is also required. In that way, we can define the attributes. Now, how to implement this? This is the XML example we can see. So the red color is one is the XML. For this DTD, so जो ऊपर में हमने बनाया है उसके लिए, this is the complying XML that we can make. So what is the definition says? There is an element question. Okay, इसके ऊपर भी एक element declaration है that we are not focusing because now our focus is entirely on the element. So that's why element, the name of the element, and it is having the PC data. So that declaration we are not bothering right now because our topic currently moved to the attributes, but it is still there. You have to understand that. So for this element question, yes, this is the element name question. There is an attribute name number. Yes, this is the number, and which is referred to as ID. So you can take some value, but again, attribute values cannot start with digits. Okay, 1, 2 ऐसा start नहीं कर सकते. They have to be started with either underscore or some letter. So that's why we have taken the attribute value as Q1. Starting letter के बाद आप कुछ भी ले सकते हैं. 101, 205, anything is valid. So the value of the attribute is Q1, and as it is a PC data, there is coming some data. Okay, so similarly, second one is again one more question we have taken. Again, it is having the number attribute. Again, it is identifier. So this is the second element. This is the first element, and this element can be repeated. So वो ऊपर आएगा, वो हम जब इसके जो parent element को declare करेंगे तो either it will be sticking to this plus or so in that way they will be there. Okay, so it is coming multiple times, occurrence indicators. Okay, so the question element is coming 2 times, and for the second identifier we are putting which is different because it will be unique also. Identifier आप double times नहीं ले सकते, it's a unique. So Q1 coming here, so thereby second element is having Q2 or Q3, some different number we are altogether taking. Then comes with an answer element. Okay, so this answer element is having the attribute name as question number, and which is referring to the some ID. ID ref means like the foreign key concept, the ID ref is actually looking up to some ID. Okay, so that's why we have put the value of whatever the ID attributes values you have provided already, only those you can put. Either it will take Q1 or Q2, but you cannot take Q3 or Q4 because there is no such identifier available with this value. Got it? So जैसे आपने यहाँ पे specify दिया है तो error आएगा. So only those definitions you have taken. अगर Q2 है तो Q2 तक valid है ये. Q3 नहीं है तो Q3 नहीं ले सकते because it is referring to these values. It is referring to these values. So what is the meaning of this? What is the meaning of this example? There is a question, what is the full form of DTD? Okay, and the answer is document type definition, because it is looking up to this particular question. This is the question element and this is the answer element. And how these two are connected? These two are connected with this ID and ID ref mechanisms. Clear? Any doubts to anybody? It is straightforward. जैसे आपके डेटाबेसेस में फॉरेन की प्राइमरी की का कॉन्सेप्ट है, सिमिलरली यहाँ पे हम वर्कआउट किया हमने. ओनली थिंग इज आईडी में जो वैल्यू है वो रिपीट टू दिस आईडी लुकअप करने के लिए वहां पे वो वैल्यू को रहना जरूरी है. अगेन मोर ऑन दैट, another one more implementation is there. This is on the same lines like the ID refs. Here from the example you can understand easily. There is an element with the name student. Okay, so student element is there. XML को मैं highlight करता हूँ so that everybody can clearly understand what is this. ठीक है. So this is our example. There is a student element. Student element is defined with a attribute role. Yes, role is there. It is an ID. So that's why I am taken one R01, roll number 01 or 02, something like that. And this is containing some PC data. Okay. Second, for this, there is a subject. It should be subject actually. Okay, for the subject element, for this subject element, there is an attribute called as SID, and this SID is again containing one more ID, which is S1, subject 1, subject 2, like that. So the subject name is IWT. Okay, so how to relate these two with some value? In the previous scenario, we have only referred with a single question. There is a single answer for every question. Similarly, we can create one more element here, and this is referring to Q2. And what is the question? What is the full form XML? This we can say like extensible markup language. Okay, so in that way, every question is uniquely identifying with an answer. But here we require some dependencies for multiple elements, from multiple elements. Okay, so again I have taken wrong here. It should be marks. So there is one more element with the name marks. Okay, so these three are different elements, which is having attribute name as reference, and now it is not ID ref. See here, it is ID refs. ID refs. That means it can identify multiple. It can connect with multiple identifiers. It can refer to multiple identifiers. So what we have done is, we are in, as it is an ID refs, we can safely take couple of identifiers like R01 from this, S1 from this, by with a space. यहाँ पे बीच में आपको एक space लेना पड़ेगा. Okay, so what it exactly says is, this is marks, this is subject. Okay, so here we can relate the marks of Samir from this IWT course is 56. I am repeating again, as it is an ID ref. Okay, so ref is ID ref. So this ref is containing this as well as this. So the meaning of this is, the marks of student roll number R01, who is like Samir with the name Samir, is having the subject IWT. For the subject IWT, is having 56 marks. So in that way, all these three are interconnected. So any doubts? So this is all about attributes. So attributes are having some constraints, like whether it should be a mandatory one or it should be an optional one. Sometimes you can take a static or some constant implementation, or you can provide with the default implementations also. Okay. So default means, like in the programming languages, you might have seen I is equal to 0 to start with. But later on, I can be some 57 also. So this is valid. So in that way, default is nothing but initialization that you want to provide to this element data. Required is, it's a mandatory thing to, you cannot escape that. Fixed is again a static kind of implementation, you cannot change. Implied is an optional one. Then we have talked about the ID and ID refs. ID and ID refs are actually meant for connecting the information within the XML document. So all the information is actually available in this, but how to connect parts of an element to a predefined data? So that part we are doing with this ID and ID refs. Okay. Element declarations we have seen, attribute declarations we have seen in today's class. Then these three are very smaller implementations, and they are only comprising to some 10% of the actual DTD that you are going to write in your XML documents. Okay, so that means these three actually not that much important. But if you know element and attribute, if you understand properly element and attribute declarations, that means you already completed 90% of the DTD declarations. So let us quickly cover these notation entity and parameter entities. So notations. Rarely we use this. Highly seasoned XML programmers will do this. But what it actually comprising is, just we try to understand. It is used to contain binary data as well as like GIF, JPEGs, some data which is in binary format. Okay, so you must be having one doubt. Okay, ये जितना भी हम दिखा रहे हैं text है, but how to provide some binary data in the XML, which is also very much important. Okay, suppose if you are creating some databases. Okay, so database में आपको एक फॉर्मेट आपको दिखेगा ब्लॉब करके. आपने अगर डेटाबेसेस प्रॉपर्ली यूज किए होंगे तो ब्लॉब इज अ डेटा टाइप. व्हाट इज दैट ब्लॉब? It's a binary data. So databases also accommodate binary data. So XML can be refashioned as databases. So that's why the compatibility to provide the binary data should also be there. Okay. So how to provide that binary data in the XML document itself? Because other than that binary data, everything is either based on UTF-8 or some UTF-16. But UTF-8 and UTF-16 cannot understand the binary formats properly. They are encoded patterns. Okay, so they are actually encoded. So that means they should be in the alphabetical characters. But here the problem is, whenever you want to share some data which is in the binary format, we got the difficulties. So there comes here the notation coming to our rescue. So notation declarations are like to equip with some images, some media files. Okay, even you can provide some short clips also, movie files. So everything is compatible with these notations. So a notation is a simple way to annotate some information in your XML document that might not be familiar to the parser, because parser can only understand UTF-8 or UTF-16 or whatever the encoding pattern that you are going to supply in the PI. So PI में आपने जो दिया है वही उसको समझ में आता है. So binary से इसको समझ में नहीं आता. But you want to provide the capability of the binary parsing also. उसके लिए 3 steps है. First one is define the notation, then define the attribute type, then use that notation. So these 3 steps are written here. First you have to define that notation. Okay, so how to define the notation? Less than exclamation, notation, name of the notation, name of the notation. You can keep this as anything. Okay, but normally we keep with the whatever the end format, because so many formats are there, MIME types are there in the HTML. So MIME types means XML, HTML, some move, so many formats are there. So that you want to relate with your end data. So my notation name is GIF, and this is system based format, and which is having this kind of extension, or you want to say this, we can keep that as an extension, and I am writing that as GIF. Okay. So then coming to the attribute list, this is the name of the element, because attribute list is defined with, first of all, name of the element, here name of the element, then coming with the attribute name, here we have provided with an attribute source, and this attribute is C data, which is required. Okay, which is required means you cannot escape this. For every image, there should be mandatory source attribute present in that element. Then only it can display, na? Otherwise it cannot display. So that's why this C data is because it's an attribute, that's why it is a C data, character data, and it's pretty much required. That up till this point you should not be having any doubt, because this we have exclusively dealt here. यहाँ पे हमने जो पढ़े हैं वही पढ़े हमने, ठीक है? So then coming with the notation declaration, you have to specify the type. The type is notation GIF. That means we have declared already, and the name of the notation is GIF. So that's why we are writing notation GIF. Again, this is required. ये भी mandatory है. Okay. So that's why you cannot also skip this. Type is equal to GIF. अब ये GIF क्या है? ये GIF notation है. Then parser will understood, okay, this is some binary information which is coming from this source data. Got it? It may be appearing confusing to some of the students. Again, I will repeat. First of all, you have to declare the notation. ये declare कर लिया हमने. यहाँ पे आप JPEG ले सकते हैं, movie ले सकते हैं, जो भी लेना है आप define करेंगे पहले, because we are defining that as a system type, because your system can easily understand what is the GIF, but your XML parser cannot. Your XML parser cannot identify that. So that's why we are putting the entire load on the system. Now it's up to the system to identify what is this. But our XML parser is able to identify this is a system part which is having this extension of the GIF, and I am keeping this notation in the attribute list declaration like this. So पहले हमने define किया, then attribute type को मैंने include किया in the at list में, then इसको use किया. use कैसे किया मैंने? यहाँ पे देखो टाइप करके मैंने दिया ना, ये टाइप एट्रीब्यूट का नाम है, तो टाइप करके बार बार लिखने की जरूरत नहीं है. यू कैन कीप एबीसी ऑल्सो. इन दैट कंडीशन हियर एबीसी विल कम. वेरी कंफ्यूजिंग, बट ग्रेजुअली विल कम टू नो. ओके, अगर मैं वहां पे टाइप लेता हूं तो यहाँ पे टाइप लूंगा, यहाँ पे एबीसी लूंगा, तो मैं यहाँ पे एबीसी लूंगा, बिकॉज दीज टू आर डिफरेंट एट्रीब्यूट. दिस इज द फर्स्ट एट्रीब्यूट, दिस पार्ट इज ओवर, and this is second attribute. Okay, so that's why we kept this as an attribute list. And यहाँ पे देखो एग्जाम्पल में फर्स्ट एट्रीब्यूट यहाँ पे डिक्लेयर किया हमने, डिफाइन किया हमने, सेकंड एट्रीब्यूट को यहाँ पे यूज किया हमने. ठीक है. सो इन दैट वे इट शुड बी वेरी क्लियर टू यू. सेपरेट करने के लिए कॉमा यूज नहीं करेंगे, सेपरेट करने के लिए कॉमा यूज नहीं करेंगे. ठीक है, अंडरस्टूड. सो दिस इज व्हाट एनोटेशन डज. जैसे मैंने बताया, ये ऐसा वाले एग्जांपल्स आपको कम यूज करने के लिए मिलता है. इवन दो इफ यू आर वर्किंग ऑन वेरी बिग कंपनी, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल द DTDs में तो काम नहीं करेंगे, काम कर भी रहे होंगे तो नोटेशन एंड पैरामीटर एंटिटी डिक्लेरेशन जनरली कम यूज करते हैं. देन फोर्थ टाइप इज एंटिटी डिक्लेरेशन. दिस इज वेरी इजी टू अंडरस्टैंड. दिस इज ए शॉर्ट हैंड एक्चुअली. देखो, सपोज मेरा एक कंपनी का नाम है, कंपनी का नाम बार बार मुझे XML में डिस्प्ले करना है हर जगह. सो आई डोंट वांट टू राइट माय कंपनी नेम लाइक समथिंग ABC सॉफ्टवेयर इंडिया लिमिटेड, सो एंड इसका एड्रेस जो भी है, मैं उसको बार बार उसको रिपीट करना चाहता हूँ हर एक XML डॉक्यूमेंट में. सो ये थोड़ा टाइम कंज्यूमिंग है, एंड इसमें एरर आने का भी चांस रहता है. एरर मीन्स इन द डेटा, सपोज यू माइट हैव मिसस्पेल्ड लाइक सॉफ्टवेयर, और एबीसी का आपने सी मिस कर लिया है, ऐसा कभी कभी चांसेस रहता है. सो बेटर टू क्रिएट एन एंटिटी with some name and provide the value. Got it? So your company name, whatever the shortcut you want to apply. Suppose मैं यहाँ पे एक एंटिटी डिक्लेयर करता हूँ, एग्जाम्पल आपको जो समझ में आ जाएगा जल्दी, RCOM, ठीक है, श्री रामदेव बाबा कॉलेज ऑफ इंजीनियरिंग. ये बार बार इतना बड़ा टाइप करने के लिए स्पेलिंग मिस्टेक्स होने के चांसेस रहते हैं, ठीक है. सपोज आई एम मिसिंग विद दिस वो समटाइम्स, मे बी इंजीनियरिंग में डबल ई नहीं आ रहा, कुछ भी हो सकता है, बार बार टाइप कर रहा हूँ तो typos can be there. But when I declare this as an entity, I can simply write this element as college ampersand RCOM semicolon college. That's all. What the parser will do is, parser जैसे ही ampersand RCOM को देखेगा, it simply replace the content with this. So ultimately parser को ये दिखेगा. Got it? So this is the example. Okay. So entity is very easy to understand. It's nothing but a shorthand that you want to keep for your some big amount of data. So here we are writing like this. ये डबल कोट स्टार्ट किया मैंने, लेकिन एंड नहीं किया यहाँ पे. This has to be like this. डबल कोट्स के अंदर आप जो भी दे रहे हैं, so that will be treated as the shorthand or the variable. Okay. So कैसे लिखेंगे इसको? Ampersand RCOM semicolon. Then it comes to the parser to replace this particular content with the whatever the definition that you have provided. Okay. Then parameter entity declarations. Based on this actually सेम ऐसा ही है, बट थोड़ा डिफरेंट है. इसको हम एंटिटी डिक्लेरेशंस को यूज करेंगे एलिमेंट्स के अंदर. ये देखो, ये एलिमेंट है ये, ठीक है. एलिमेंट के अंदर हम एंटिटी डिक्लेरेशंस को यूज करते हैं. पैरामीटर एंटिटी डिक्लेरेशंस को हम एग्जांपल नहीं है क्या? एग्जांपल नहीं दिया मैंने. इसको यूज करेंगे, यस एट्रीब्यूट, ये एग्जांपल है, ये एट्रीब्यूट्स के अंदर यूज करेंगे. Let's first see the declaration. We have a catalog with the number of clothing items as shirt, pant, skirt, something like that. All these are dresses, and the dresses will be having some common properties. कोई भी ड्रेस है उसका एक साइज रहता है, एक कलर रहता है, सेम एक प्राइस भी रहता है. Okay, so whatever the common formats, common properties that you can identify for a particular item, that you can put this in the parameter entity declarations. So that is what the meaning. So they can be grouped to simplify the DTD. Okay. So this is again you are going to define as an entity. Entity hai, but whenever you are starting with the percentage with that identifier, that is treated as a parameter entity. You can provide with any name. मैंने example में लिया common, and इसको declare कर रहा हूँ. Size करके एक attribute है, and it is having attributes में हमने choice based operator हमने already check किया है. So you must be understanding this. So what this signifies? Size can only be either small or medium or large, and the default is medium. तीनों में से एक हो सकता है. अगर तीनों ही स्पेसिफाई नहीं किया तो बाय डिफॉल्ट क्या है? ये मीडियम है. एट्रीब्यूट डिक्लेरेशन हमने चेक किया है. सो बेस्ड on those declarations only we are specifying the attribute here. Second, color can be red or blue or green or black or white. If nothing is specified, then it is white. Then price, see data, it's required. So बिना प्राइस का कोई भी आइटम नहीं है. बिना कलर का रह सकता है because we are providing some default value. बिना साइज का भी हो सकता है, we are providing with medium एक default value. बट बिना प्राइस का नहीं हो सकता, दैट्स व्हाई वी हैव kept this like required. ओके, ये अपना डिक्लेरेशन खत्म हो चुका है. नाउ कमिंग टू द एलिमेंट usages in the DTD. एक एलिमेंट है शर्ट. ओके, shirt is containing PC data, pant is containing PC data, skirts is again containing PC data. बट तीनों के लिए कॉमन एट्रीब्यूट्स है. शर्ट को भी ये तीनों चीजें लगेगा, पैंट को भी साइज कलर प्राइस लगेगा, स्कर्ट्स को भी ये तीनों चीजें लगने वाला है. सो अगर ये नहीं है तो क्या करना पड़ेगा आपको? शर्ट के लिए आपको तीनों डिफाइन करना पड़ेगा अगेन इन द एटलिस्ट, पैंट के लिए भी डिफाइन करना पड़ेगा, स्कर्ट के लिए भी डिफाइन करना पड़ेगा, विच इज रिपीटेटिव. सो दैट्स व्हाई वी हैव टेकन ए कॉमन फॉर्मेट. एंड जैसे हम कॉमन करके स्पेसिफाई किया, all these three properties are getting enlisted under these elements in the format of attributes. So ये तीनों के तीनों एप्लीकेबल है, शर्ट के लिए भी, पैंट्स के लिए भी, स्कर्ट्स के लिए भी. बार बार उसको रीडिफाइन करने की जरूरत नहीं है. So that is the shortcut way of implementing the things. ठीक है? I think you means एक एग्जाम्पल अगर आपको चाहिए तो इसकी बेसिस पे, एलिमेंट का नाम क्या है? देखो एलिमेंट का नाम शर्ट है. ठीक है, अब शर्ट के लिए एट्रीब्यूट क्या है? कॉमन है. दैट मीन्स साइज आएगा यहाँ पे. साइज अगर मैं नहीं स्पेसिफाई करूंगा तो मीडियम आएगा, अगर स्पेसिफाई करूंगा तो यहाँ पे स्मॉल दे सकता हूं मैं. फर्स्ट वन इज ओवर. सेकेंड वन इज कॉमन में कलर है. ठीक है, सो कलर ऑल्सो अगेन इट बिकम्स ऑप्शनल. मैं स्पेसिफाई करूंगा तो रेड करूंगा या कुछ और करूंगा, अगर नहीं करूंगा तो व्हाइट आएगा ऑटोमेटिकली. प्राइस इज रिक्वायर्ड, you cannot omit that. Price is equal to some 2690 rupees. So in that way you can define your shirt element. अब ये एलिमेंट स्टैंड अलोन एलिमेंट है नहीं है, पीसी डेटा है. ठीक है, सो पीसी डेटा है तो कंपनी का नाम कुछ भी दे सकते हैं, ललिता ड्रेस, समथिंग लाइक दैट, which you can take for your element name. So this is a valid XML based on the DTD that you have taken here. समझे क्या अभी? So this is parameter entity which we have kept in a single format, which you can reuse in all the element declarations. पैंट के लिए भी यूज कर सकते हैं, स्कर्ट के लिए भी यूज कर सकते हैं. Okay, so that is how it is coming to the rescue. So parameter entity declaration is over. Entity declaration, which is very handy for the element declarations, which is also over. So with that, अब कमेंट्स को तो कोई डीटीडी अप्लाई नहीं करेगा, कमेंट तो पड़ेगा नहीं पार्सर. ठीक है, कमेंट के लिए कोई डीटीडी अप्लाई नहीं करेगा. सो आई एम स्किपिंग ऑन दैट, इट्स नॉट रेलेवेंट एक्चुअली. सो नाउ आई थिंक एवरीबडी clear on the concepts of how to implement the DTD for these 5 comments. Then moving ahead, examples. See the example here. First one. So first what I will do is I will start with this example. Okay, so how to write this answer for this? What is the element name? Anybody can answer? Anybody can answer what is the element name?
Family.
Yes, right family. Yes, right family here. Okay, so पढ़ेंगे तो आपको जल्दी समझ में आ जाएगा. रेड क्यों नहीं हो रहा है? यस, फैमिली. एलिमेंट का नाम क्या है? फैमिली है. एंड फैमिली के अंदर क्या है? पर्सन है. ठीक है, तो फर्स्ट व्हाट आई विल डू इज I will open family like this. Okay, and in that family person element which is plus times. Okay, so that means one or more times. So what I will do is first of all I will write a person here. Let us see what happens. Yes, when I go down, person is an empty element. Okay, so I cannot take the element in this way. This is wrong. But whereas my element should be a standalone element, so that's why I have to take this element as this. Okay, पर्सन एलिमेंट लिया मैंने, धीरे धीरे मैं नीचे आ रहा हूँ, एलिमेंट का डिक्लेरेशन यहाँ तक हमने कंप्लीट कर लिया. एज इट इज प्लस यू कैन सेफली टेक वन और मोर. एक बार तो आना चाहिए, बट मल्टीपल टाइम्स भी आप ले सकते हैं. एक बार तो आना ही चाहिए, बट मल्टीपल टाइम्स आप ले सकते हैं. अरे यार ठीक है. This is how we can take multiple family elements, person elements, and in that now there is an attribute with the name for the person element. Okay, so person के अंदर एक attribute, yeah. So let's quickly see this. So second person attribute is gender. So gender I have taken, and again it is having some constraint. Either it should be a male or female. You cannot take something like child or something like that. Okay, it is not valid. It is only valid from these two choices because there is a choice operator here. But one more thing is here to understand, either you can take this or you can miss out because this is implied. So मैं सेकंड वाले में क्या करूंगा, मैं देखो मैं कॉपी पेस्ट कर रहा हूँ यहाँ पे, सेकंड वाले में मैं मिस कर रहा हूँ. मैं दिस इज वैलिड. व्हाई? you cannot miss out the first one is required, but the second one is optional because it is implied. Okay, so मैं पहले वाले में लिया मैंने मेल करके, सेकंड वाले में नहीं लिया, छोड़ दिया मैंने, थर्ड वाले में फीमेल करके मैंने वैल्यू लिया. So these three are fine because any one value come from these two. And one more attribute is there, that is type. I will take type is equal to, again it should be from one of the provided values, boy, or type is equal to father, and I can miss out completely because there is a default value mother is there. Okay, so मैं यहाँ पे मिस आउट कर दिया. So and attribute list person should be given with ID, ये भी है यहाँ पे, ID भी है. ठीक है, so ID is P01. So this I am keeping here and copy paste with some another value like 2 and 3. There is no ID ref here. So let us check whether this is applicable or not. Okay, तो मैं क्या करूंगा, इसको आप वैलिडेशन करके दिखाना है. ठीक है, so I am copying this, I am putting this in the mca.dtd. ठीक है, तो ऑलरेडी जो है उसको उसमें रिप्लेस कर रहा हूँ. लेट अस चेक विद दिस फैमिली and go back to here. इसको मैं रिप्लेस कर रहा हूँ. Now I have to change the root element name like family and rest of the things are same. अरे ये पूरा गड़बड़ हो गया. इसमें कॉपी पेस्ट करेंगे तो quotations are not identifying by this XML parser. Copy editor. Name can be suppose boy Ram and gender is male. Okay, and this quotations actually creating the problem. Father here, then name is and here name is female. That's all. So anything wrong here? It is under gender is equal to this, male, type is equal to boy. So let us check what the DTD, what the XML parser says about this. Okay, I am clicking on the well formedness. It is well formed, and when I click on this validation, some error is there. Attribute ID is not declared for element person. That means ID. Oh, got it. I have declared small ID here, and
small caps.
Yeah, yes, that is the error here. And now it should save this. Yes, the underline gone, red color underline. Now if I am checking on this, our XML is valid. Clear, everybody? See, I have missed the type here. Second one में type नहीं आया, third one में भी नहीं आया because the type is taking the value default value and gender is implied. अगर मैं gender मिस भी करता हूँ, यहाँ पे gender नहीं है, देखो second वाले में gender नहीं है because that is implied. But if I miss this what is this name is required. You can see this. मैं किसी में से एक को यहाँ पे से हटा देता हूँ. Name I am deleting. Okay, let us check what happens. Missing required attribute name. Okay, so आपको compulsorily उसको देना ही पड़ेगा. Then only your XML document is going to be valid. I think everybody understood how to write proper DTDs and proper XMLs accordingly. And this is the first example. And one more example, a couple of examples are there. What I will do is, this is very easy example based on the ID and ID res. So what I will do is quickly explain this one. We are concluding our session today. Okay, so quickly, what is the root element? Root element is farm. Okay, and in this root element, what are the elements that should be coming? Farmer, and farmers can be n numbers. Okay, so this is valid. ऐसा अगर आप लेते तो ये valid है. उसके बाद ही either dog or cat will come. Okay, so I will go by the dog. In the farm there can be multiple dogs because it is a star. Okay, so I am taking multiple dog. I cannot take that cat. Okay, so that's why dog आता है तो cat नहीं आ सकता. So that's why there is a pipe symbol here. ये element का complete हो गया. Now comes with the pig. So I will write the pig because it is star symbol. Again, you can take multiple pig elements also. Then comes with the goat, cow. But here you can see there is a question mark on this composite operator. Composite operator के बाद question mark आ रहा है. That means either it is coming 0th time or it should be coming 1 time. I will prefer 0th time. So thereby I do not have any dependency to write this element either goat or cow. I can be set out. It's safe. Okay, मैं छोड़ देता हूँ उसको. Then again comes with the chicken plus or duck star. So if I am taking chicken, it should be coming at least 1 time. But if I am taking duck, it can be 0 time. But what I am doing is I am preferring duck, but that is coming 0 time. So thereby I should not be having any dependency to write this in the first place. So for this XML, I have properly created for this DTD, I have properly created the XML accordingly. समझे क्या? मैंने कुछ मिस आउट कर लिया. अगर मैं इसको सेलेक्ट करता हूं तो आपको लिखना पड़ेगा चिकन प्लस बिकॉज चिकन एटलीस्ट 1 टाइम आना चाहिए. बट एज आई हैव प्रिफर्ड डक, इट कैन बी मिस्ड आउट कंप्लीटली. सो देयर बाय मेरा यहाँ पे डक एलिमेंट आया नहीं है या तो चिकन भी नहीं है. सिमिलरली काउ एलिमेंट, यस डॉग भी मिस कर सकते हैं. ये ऐसा वैलिड है. ओके, इवन मैं पिग भी मिस कर सकता हूँ. ओके, बट फार्मर को मिस नहीं कर सकता मैं. सो अगर आप कंप्लीटली उसको इंटरप्रेट करेंगे तो ये भी एक वैलिड एक्सएमएल है. ये सारे के सारे मैं मिस आउट कर सकता हूँ. कोई कंफ्यूजन? Yes, everybody clear how to write the DTDs?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So based on this, you are going to have some assignments also, and in the examinations also, you are going to have either DTD, so that you have to write corresponding XML in this way, or sometimes you will be having the XMLs. Where is that XML? You will be having the XMLs in this way. So corresponding DTDs you have to write. So with that, we have completed the XML portion of